And then there's the New York Slimes, the Holocaust-denying newspaper, which is the paper of record for the media and the left, by Thomas Friedman, a sycophant for the Red Chinese government. Oh, yes, he is, among others. And what he wants the media to do, in a piece he wrote at the New York Slimes, is to all of them come together to undermine Trump. Some healthy soul-searching is taking place, he writes, in newsrooms across the country these days, over whether the mainstream media should be covering President Trump's every tweet and rally. My answer, absolutely. It is the right thing for us to do professionally, and as last night's election results indicated, it's the right thing to do politically if you want to see a check on Donald Trump's power. A check on what power? Maybe he's confused with Barack Milhouse Benito Obama. It appears that it's the toxic lying, bullying, and unpresidential behaviors that Trump exhibits most in his rallies and tweets, which we in the media so incessantly cover, that is turning off the very moderate, best-educated Republicans and suburban women that Trump will need to hold the GOP a majority in the House, let alone get reelected. So bring on the coverage. You see, ladies and gentlemen, putting aside his idiocy, he wants the media to take down Trump. That's what he wants. He wants a chorus line of phony news people to take down Trump. Now, it's not Trump who loses these elections, although we haven't lost many. It's the candidates running, some of whom are very bad and don't know how to raise money. America's unemployment rate is 3.9%, writes Thomas Friedman. Inflation for the moment is moderate. The stock market keeps setting records, and the president is coming off a crisis-diffusing summit with North Korea. He's a propagandist, Friedman. And yet the latest Real Clear Politics average of polls shows Trump's having a personal approval rating of only 43%, with 53% disapproving of his performance. And in the special election in Ohio held on Tuesday, the GOP House candidate, whom Trump and the entire GOP establishment went to bat for, is barely ahead of his Democratic rival in a district that has not sent a Democrat to Congress in more than 3 decades. Do you remember writing these things when Barack Obama was president? And they lost one state legislature after another, one state governorship after another. They lost the House of Representatives. They lost the Senate. Do you remember any of that, folks? No, he doesn't talk about that. That does not speak well for Trump or his midterm prospects, but it does for the American people and thinking Republicans, of course. It turns out there's still a cohort of Republicans who've not sold their souls to Trump the way virtually every one of their elected representatives in Washington has done. Turns out that there are thinking Republicans for whom character, decency, and truth-telling still matter. Yeah? How about all you Democrats who back Clinton, who back Ted Kennedy, and all the rest of the sleaze? Truth-telling still matter in a president. Turns out that there are thinking Republicans who have watched Trump's Twitter rants, his disturbed performance at Helsinki, and the unrestrained bile that he emits at his rallies, and the blind, ecstatic response of his core base, and found, in other words, he hates his supporters. Found them unnerving and unworthy of their support. That is what the polls and polling stations last night are telling us. Imagine how well President Trump would be doing if he weren't Donald Trump, if he weren't such a lying jerk. And he goes on. Now, this guy's a leftist. He's a hate America leftist. He used to praise the Chinese government, which is a genocidal regime. He's a buffoon. He's a 3 or 4 time winner of the Pulitzer Prize. That shows you how useless the Pulitzer Prize is. And he writes for a newspaper that denied, effectively, the Holocaust. Donald Trump isn't any of the things he says, but this guy is reflective of the mindset of those who work at CNN and NBC and MSNBC and CBS and ABC, and of course the New York Times and the Washington Post. Reflective. And here's the biggest lie, Mr. Friedman, that your newspaper pretends to be a real newspaper. Oh, it reports news. But the fact of the matter is, it is biased. It hasn't endorsed a Republican president for candidate in I don't know how long. Look at your editorial board, at the woman that they just hired, a racist. And we can go on and on about your newspaper and the Democrat Party. You, sir, are a member of a party that supported slavery. How do you forgive that? You, sir, are a member of a party that supported segregation. You're the party of George Wallace. You're the party of Hugo Long. The Klan was an outgrowth of the Democrat Party. You're the party of all those governors who stood in front of those elementary school doors, stopping little black kids from going to school with little white kids. That's your party. You're the party of the Japanese internment camps. You're the party of Franklin Roosevelt, who was a quasi-dictator. He wanted to pack the Supreme Court. He ran for not 2, not 3, but 4 terms, breaking with the tradition set by George Washington. And I could go on and on about who's the dictator and on about who's the liar because, you know, statist progressives, their entire ideology is built around a lie. Built around a lie that the central government can determine what's best for you, that the central government can determine what your needs are, that only through the central government can you truly be liberated and equal. That's the big lie of the Democrat Party. Nowhere in this column, not one place, does he mention the president's successes from a conservative perspective. The courts, the military, immigration, all these efforts by this president to secure this nation and to ensure the rule of law is upheld. But that's not Thomas L. Friedman. That's not what he's about. The man married into wealth. They live in a huge estate in Maryland. They probably have properties elsewhere. He sits there on his fat ass in an office on a top floor at the New York Slimes and writes stuff like this. What about your praise of Red China? A communist, centralized, genocidal regime, Mr. Friedman. What about it? Well, I guess it didn't bother you because you write for a newspaper that closed its eyes to the Holocaust. Nothing Donald Trump has done or even contemplates doing compares to that. Nothing. You're just another despicable, overrated, big mouth. Pretty much it. I have my disagreements with Donald Trump, and we express them from a policy perspective. We express them rationally. This is not rational. This is a call to media arms to keep it up, to take down this guy. And that, you see, is freedom of the press. Donald Trump is a threat to freedom of the press. He sounds like Stalin, don't you know? Actually, Thomas Friedman sounds like Stalin. Jim Acosta sounds like Stalin. Stephen Colbert not only sounds like Stalin, he looks like Stalin's daughter. Yes,